If you were thinking about building a new home or building a new investment property, then this episode is for you. Today I'm joined by Kerri-Ann Hooper, the director and founder of Carnelian Projects. Kerri-Ann is a new home specialist. She has a real estate license, a building and construction qualification, an arts degree, and 30 years industry experience in property. So I know she's got the answers to the questions that we have when building a new home. John and I have been talking a lot lately about the incentives available for new homes. I know a lot of our listeners are going to be embarking on this journey. So I thought it was timely to have Kerri-Ann in here and cut through some of the red tape of building tenders, and also to arm our listeners with some knowledge as before they approach any builders or buy land. You're listening to This Is Property, and my name is Rachelle Kroon. Thank you for joining us today, Kerri-Ann.
Thank you for having me on.
I got this off your website and I absolutely love it. It says, I am your wing woman when you are building a new home.
That's right.
I also read when I was on there, though, that you were the first on the dance floor when an ABBA song is playing, and I want to unpack both of those facts with you today. But before we start, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and how you actually got into doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, so my business, Carnelian Projects, has been around for nearly 14 years now. So my sister and I, we started the business together. And then we sort of split the businesses. She took the property management side. I stayed with the sales, selling off the plan with building. And, so she actually sold that side of the business a couple of years ago. But, so we named it Carnelian Projects. It's after a gemstone, which is an orangey, reddy gemstone. I'm wearing a necklace now. That's where you probably see my orange suit comes from.
Yeah.
I wear my orange suit a lot. And, so my love of building came about. My parents always had, they had real estate offices. They had slate and tiles, if anyone remembers slate.
Yeah.
So I was always sort of in the building, sort of real estate industry sort of growing up. And I got to the age of 40, wanted to do something with my life. I was in a job that I absolutely hated, working for someone, and honestly, I'm not a good worker working for someone, employee. So my sister and I sort of got together and said, what are we going to do? And, I wanted to get back into the building industry. I love selling the house and land packages. I loved seeing homes grow up from the ground. So that's where that sort of idea came from.
Yeah,
so, nearly 14 years now. Yes.
That is so good. And tell me about, so when people are building a house, and that's such a big thing, and I know that you're an expert, when people build a house or buy land, tell me a little bit about the process. Like, where do people actually start?
Yeah, I suppose they start in display homes first.
Yeah.
Other than going to talk to their mortgage broker to see how much they can actually borrow.
Yeah.
They look around the different land estates as well, look at the areas that they want to be in, look where, schools are, daycare centres are. And then the next big thing is to go to display builders.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where they can be a little bit caught out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do people tend to buy their land first, or do they tend to find a builder first? What's the process?
Yeah, generally they do buy the land first.
Yeah.
And it sort of goes together. They'll look at a land, they'll put a deposit on the land, and then they'll go and talk to a builder to see what they can actually fit on that land and whether that's within their budget. But so it's sort of, I suppose it's sort of together, the house and the land and the house together that they look at. Yeah.
So I guess where some people do get caught is when they're negotiating with the builder. That building tender is the big thing. And I know that you offer a tender health check.
Yes.
So you actually check that tender. Tell me, when you're looking at that, what are you looking for? What are the common things that people usually do get caught out in?
I know, and this is so sad because a lot of the big display builders, they'll put out their $70,000 discount, $90,000 discount, and people are just really sucked into that. I mean, I know that, before I was in the business, when we were building one of our homes, we built 5 times. We
Five
building
times?
5 times, and it looks like we're going to build again. But that was probably, that was probably 20 years ago, and we got a free TV. And we thought, oh my God, a huge free TV. And at that time, I think they were like $10,000 each, those TVs. So we weren't even thinking that we weren't even getting a driveway, that we weren't getting floor coverings. All we were thinking about was that we were getting this big TV that still relates to now. They're getting that $70,000, $90,000 off their price, and the free wine fridge and the free washing machine and the free dryer. But this is the problem. Those particular builders, some particular builders, I should say, are leaving out essential items that are needed for the plans to actually be approved. So you've got this big discount, but you're going to be charged extra during the build.
So you said things that people leave out, like essential items.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are the things that should be included or you want to see included?
Yeah.
Or that you have to budget for if they're not included?
Yeah. You want to make sure that bill price is actually your house that you like on your block of land. It's not floating above the block of land. It actually is priced on that block of land. What I mean by that is that if your block of land has a little bit of slope, even like, less than a metre slope or maybe a metre or a metre and a half slope, that bill price actually reflects that, because your house, how it's positioned on your land, also relates to where the driveway has to go. If you need a step up from your garage to your house because you've got a bit of a slope on your block.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. Your contour plan, your builder needs to see that contour plan of your land. Other things that are like estate requirements. So certain estates have certain guidelines of how the house has to look. Like could be how the facade has to be, what materials that house has to be built out of, where certain things like the solar panels are positioned on your house. So that you've got to think of that. Then there's other government requirements like BASIX. Now BASIX is BASIX, and that's mainly relates to New South Wales.
What's BASIX?
Yeah, so it's the Building Sustainability Index. So it looks at the heating and cooling of the home, how that home is going to fare with energy assessment, how it's going to look as far as how the windows are positioned, how the house is actually positioned on the block as far as north, east, west, south. You don't want your living areas facing the western sun. It also looks at insulation as well. And there is a nationwide assessment of energy as well, energy assessment. It's called NATHERS. May not be pronouncing that correctly, but it's NATHERS.
Yeah.
And that's a nationwide scheme as well. So BASIX relates to New South Wales, but there are other things in each individual state, but nationwide, it's NATHERS as well, and that looks at the energy assessment of your home.
Yeah, great.
So, and another thing is bushfire rating as well.
I'm hearing this a lot lately.
Yeah. So majority, like all land has a bushfire rating. That could be a BAL low, BAL low, or it could go up to like a BAL 40 where you need your house. It all is about what your house needs to have if there's a bushfire, how it can sustain an ember attack. So, that's with a lot of things with the big builders. They're leaving those essential things out. You're getting that discount, but then your plans are put into council or with the certifier and it's like, oh, we need a little bit more extra money. Oh, we need this extra report. Oh, it's not BASIX. You need more BASIX items to pass the BASIX assessment. So, this is where a lot of people are getting caught out.
So a lot of our listeners will be using certain incentives and government grants to get into their first home.
Yes.
And they're going to build it, and there may not be a lot of extra funds there.
That's right.
So what would your advice be to make sure that everything's in that contract, because they aren't going to have that money just kicking around to put in afterwards?
That's right. Well, first of all, chat to me because I can talk to anyone Australia-wide. But it's to ask those questions of the display home salespeople. And if they won't answer those questions, you need to go higher. You need to talk to a manager. You need to know if, the BASIX is included, the bushfire, the contour, even a soil test, soil classification. With new estates, each particular block of land gets a soil classification.
Yes.
Now, that affects the thickness of your slab and also piering. So you want to make sure that build price reflects that soil assessment classification. So
do you think it's important for the I guess the person to have their land, if they're going to not do a house and land package, if they're going to go and buy land and then they're going to go to a builder and find something to go on that land, and I think that's a lot of the process people follow.
Yeah.
They can't just get a quote for the build. They need to actually understand how it's going to look on their land, don't they, to really give a quote?
Yeah. So, I mean, some builders will do what's called a siting. So basically they'll put the house plan actually on the block, and you can sort of see that little diagram.
Yeah.
But again, you want to make sure that is just not a block of land on a flat, your house on a flat block of land. You want to make sure that actually reflects that piece of land that you've got, so with the contours, with the slope as well. So I suppose that we'd just be asking those questions with the basics of the bushfire, with the contour, with the soils, any other council requirements, is it all included in that price?
Yeah, great. So definitely ask the right questions,
Yes.
and this is before you're signing anything.
Yes, before you're signing anything. And another big thing is colour selections, where a lot of people get caught out because they'll go signing a tender, signing the contract. Oh, and now we'll go to colour selections. Oh, no, what you wanted, what you think you're getting in a display home is, thousands of dollars more. You're just getting 300 by 300 millimetre tiles, not a 450 or 600 millimetre tile that you were getting in the display
so
home.
that's really interesting. So you said they've gone to the display home.
Yes.
And they've seen all these beautiful fittings and fixtures. Then they get a quote, but that's not actually what they're getting in their tender. So how do people protect themselves against that?
Yeah.
Like what are they looking at?
That's the thing. People just assume that that's what they're going to get. They're going to get
Especially
the same.
if you haven't done it before.
No, that's right. So that's where you really need to ask those questions. Are these the tiles that I'm getting? Is this the shower screen I'm getting? Are these the taps that I'm getting? You need to get down to the specifics before you sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, great.
Otherwise, you'll go to colour selections and you'll think, oh, they're not the tiles I thought I was getting, or they're not the taps I thought I was getting. And
So a lot of people have to sign, though, before they get to colour selections.
Yes.
What would you suggest to ask first before they sign?
Yeah.
But they say, oh no, we do colour selections later. How do you get into that to stop it happening?
I think go around to every individual room of that display home.
Yeah,
and
okay.
say, is this the carpet I'm getting? Or is this a really nice plush carpet? Am I getting that? And you want it in writing. You want everything
Okay, so
in
that's
writing.
interesting. You want it in writing.
Writing, yes.
So in writing in an email, or does it have to be in the tender?
It has to be in the tender and in the contract as well, because there are some clauses actually in contracts with display builders that actually say anything that you talk to the display salesperson about. So anything verbally is not legal and binding. It's whatever is in this tender or whatever's in this contract.
And let's take it back a step, because we've both used the word tender here,
Yes.
and I'm actually just conscious that some of our listeners won't actually know what a tender is.
Yeah.
What is a building tender?
Well, it's basically a quote. So it will outline all the inclusions. So you should get the actual pictures of what toilet you're getting, what taps you're getting as well in those in that tender.
Yeah.
And then you would move towards a build contract. So most of the time the build contract will have the plans as well, and it also your tender will form part of that contract as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the tender's a little bit different to your contract.
Yeah. And I just think it's good to note there, I mean, looking at things that are included, I've seen so many that have things like driveways and fences that aren't included.
Yeah.
But you really need those things included to have a
do.
finished home, don't
Yeah,
you?
especially drainage outside, like with the landscaping, especially the weather we've been having lately.
Yes.
Oh,
so
yes,
drainage, tell me about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the big builders don't do the landscaping, the driveway, what we're saying, or the fencing. So
Yeah.
they don't do any external drainage. So basically people are moving in without a driveway, without anything for the water to trap, the water to be trapped by. They're not even external taps. Some of them don't even give you a drain underneath the tap outside as well. So with this weather, like I said, we've been having all the rain. If you don't have drainage outside, basically your backyard is just a mosh pit.
Because I think a lot of people would think if landscaping wasn't included that I just have to put some lawns down and plant some plants later, but that's not the case.
No. And like a lot of them actually say it in the contract, or in their tender, yard gullies or external drainage to be done by owner after handover.
Yeah, great. So we need to understand that everything's included in the contract.
Yes.
And if they're not included, we need to have a budget for what we need to put in. So it's fine if you want to get the driveway done later, but you need to have the money to do that.
Yes.
We need to check that there isn't the BAL and basics and all of those things are for your land.
Yes.
If there's a slope, we need to take that into consideration. If you're building to live in, you might want to have a really, you might really want to get involved in all of those decisions. Tell me the difference between turnkey, because I see this a lot, turnkey and not turnkey.
Yeah, so turnkey is virtually you turn the key in the front door and walk in with your furniture. So that means floor coverings are done. That means blinds are done. That means all electrical. Electrical is a big thing too, actually, if it's not they're in your tenders. And a lot of people get surprised when they go to colour selections because that's sometimes when they have the electrical appointment too, and they'll be extra.
Yes.
Yeah, they're realising they're not getting a downlight, they're just getting a batten with actually no globe. So, yes. So turnkey is basically the home is completely finished inside, completely finished outside. So that means with retaining, that means fencing, landscaping, you get a little garden out the front, you get letterbox, you get your driveway, you get clothesline. So it's all completed inside and out.
Yeah, and I think and I've built a few homes and I've done a few turnkey, and I did one recently that wasn't turnkey and I got caught out.
Yeah.
And you think you know, but you don't know until you actually get in front of that appointment. But there were all these things that came in that were unplanned and not budgeted for. So I thought it was really important for everyone to understand, especially things like electrical.
Yes.
You think you're just selecting colours in that appointment, but you're not.
No,
you're
yeah.
selecting power points. So you should know that before you budget.
Yes.
And if you've got all of your finance approved already at this point, they're not adding extra things over here. You've got to have the cash to cover that. And so people need to understand what's included and what's not.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people are getting caught out because they've got to put it on a credit card or go to mum and dad. Can I have some extra money? So, yes, we need to know. You need to know exactly what you're up for first before you sign.
I love the going around to every room in the house of the display home and actually asking. And I would never have thought to do that, but I think it's really important.
Yes.
All right, that is a great start. We are going to take a break and come back to some of the tougher questions like what does it actually cost to build a home in 2025?
This is Property is brought to you by Sphere Home Loans. Sphere Home Loans is a mortgage broker that helps our listeners all around Australia. So, if you want to get into your first home sooner, looking at upgrading, an additional property, or want your current mortgage reviewed, just search Sphere Home Loans or click the link in the show notes, and their dedicated brokers will be able to help you wherever you are. If you are, however, after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, we are back. It has been since the start of time that builders have been underquoting build costs. Now, I want to know, and this has changed a lot in the last few years, I want to know in 2025 what the real cost is to build a home. So when people are doing numbers in their head, if I'm thinking about, I'm just going to throw something at you, a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, brick and tile home, what is the actual cost of what somebody can build that for turnkey in 2025?
Yeah, you're looking around 410,000,
Wow.
190 square metres, roughly around that. So, yes, I know 5 years ago, that figure was around that 300,000. And I know some builders say that now, but it's not really true.
See, that's really important to note. So it was 300,000 only 5 years ago,
Yes.
and now it's over 400,000.
Yes.
But I remember when it was 300,000 and people would say, oh, I've been quoted 200, and you'd kind of go, oh, maybe go and check that.
Yeah.
So I think if people know the figure, then if it's substantially less or it's not even in the realm, they can push a little harder back and say, really?
Yeah.
Is that all included? Because you don't want to start to engage in costs before you know the cost.
That's right. And I always say if it's too good to be true, it normally is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If it's too good to be true, it already is.
Yeah.
Now, if you're thinking about, so a lot of people are going to be thinking about the possibility of upsizing.
Yes.
So, and it's a perfect time to upsize. Now, when people do look at upsizing though, a lot of them are going to be thinking about the difference between, do I leave my house and sell it and buy another house?
Yeah.
Or am I going to look at the possibility of knocking down my house and rebuilding another one? Now, I think a lot of people, when they're going down that process, I guess, don't know where to start.
Yes.
So can you talk to, I know you do a lot of this, can you talk to us a little bit about the process? If somebody was considering, I guess, comparing, or how would they actually go about knocking down and rebuilding their home if they love where they live?
Yeah, first thing I would say is to get a builder out to your house, to your property.
Yeah.
It's no good just going to display homes for that, because, again, the display homes would just give you a random, a generic price and it won't actually relate to your property. So that's the first thing. Get a builder out to have a look. So that way they can have a look at the drainage, at the electricity poles, then have a look in the backyard. You know, it's so important that you get a builder out there first.
Yeah.
And then they can give you a quote on what you want to do. I suppose the next thing would be talking to your builder to see if it's achievable.
Yeah.
Because council rules have changed as far as the size of the house compared to the size of the land. So you may want to build a gorgeous big home, but you may not be able to do that with the council requirements.
So the house has to take up less of the land than it did before?
Yeah, there's certain rules about how big a house can be compared to the size of the land now. So that's an important thing. We need to know where you need to know where the sewer is. We want to make sure it's not running halfway through the block of land, because to build over sewer is very costly. Want to know, again, like with the drainage, electricity, is that electricity pole good out the front, or that needs to be replaced? And then as far as talking to the builder, they may have their own drafting person you can talk to as far as getting a plan drawn up. Or you can go to an architect and do that as well. But the next thing is to make sure that when you get that quote through, I always say is set a little bit extra aside with knockdown rebuilds, because it's not what you can see, it's what's underneath. That is the problem in the soil.
Okay, so tell me about underneath. That sounds scary. What comes up when you're possibly knocking down and rebuilding a home?
Yeah, well, comparing it to a new estate, we know what's in the soil because they've just, they've made that estate.
Yeah.
So we know what's in there. There's no, majority of the time, there's no contaminated fill. It's all, they know exactly what's in the soil. That's not like buried bricks or whatever in a new estate. Compare that to an older home in an established street that's maybe been there, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
They used to bury all sorts of stuff in the old days.
And have you seen that happen?
Yes,
where
I have.
they uncover building materials in the floor?
Yeah.
Or
so
in
that's
the soil?
when they've done the demolition, I've had one where they've gone to take away the garage, so they've taken up the concrete, and there's virtually been another house buried underneath that concrete. So that means 70 odd years ago, someone got fill from somewhere, and it was full of bricks and bits of timber frame and all that. So it was an old home buried underneath this slab in the garage. So that's a big thing. Also, another thing is when you do the demo, there's asbestos. You have to be careful of that as well.
That's big now, the asbestos.
And they used to bury it, the asbestos, or they just put it up in the roof. So they just hide bits and pieces in the roof. So you may be quoted, say, $25,000, $30,000 to demolish like a standard single-level 4-bedroom home. But just keep in mind, just put a little bit extra aside. If they find asbestos, that could blow out to $50,000, $70,000 extra.
Okay, so that's a really important piece, because the only time to get those extra funds is before you start.
Yes.
So it's really important, unlike, I guess, some of our first-time buyers or first-time investors that are going to be, I guess, borrowing high percentage of lends. If you've got the land already, I guess you've got the opportunity to get some money out before you start this process. So I guess having that knowledge of what could happen, I guess it's going to arm people with, I guess, the ability to know, I might need a buffer here.
Yes,
exactly. And borrow some money before they start that is outside that build contract. Can I ask, and I don't know if you know the answer, but what would you say a good figure is to have as a buffer before you start? So out of the build contract, just over here against the land, what should people be borrowing if they're considering a knockdown rebuild?
Have at least $70,000 extra sitting there.
70,000.
Yes, at least.
That's what could happen that you maybe not planned for
That's
or budgeted
right.
for.
I mean, when they dig down, they might find contaminated soil. The drainage might be old terracotta pipes, and you need to replace all that. So, like I said, you may need to relocate the electricity pole. Your water may need to come from across the street, so they may need to dig, I should say, underneath the street to connect, water or something. So you just don't know. You got to have that contingency plan in place for a knockdown rebuild.
Contingency is so important. And I even think if anyone building, and I know some of our first home buyers probably aren't going to have the ability to have extra funds kicking around, but I would think that you always have to have contingencies in place if you're building. But I guess it's great to know for a knockdown rebuild, you would allow to have a little bit more.
Yes, that's right.
What are some of the other things that people should budget for if they're doing a knockdown rebuild that may not be in that initial contract from the builder?
Well, I suppose the other thing would be, again, we're talking about soil again. If they strike rock, if the builder strikes rock, so that is not only when you're actually digging up the rock, it's actually disposing of the rock as well. You need to have a clean fill certificate as well. So again, it's not like the olden days where you can just go and dump whatever you want. We have to make sure that soil is clean, and that who is accepting that soil or that rock has to make sure that that's clean as well. Otherwise, it has to go to somewhere else if it's contaminated. So that would be a big thing with the rock. And I think too, even though I say to go to an architect if you wanted to have a concept plan, just keep in mind sometimes they design homes with material that is quite expensive. You want to, if you're on a tight budget and you're having this contingency plan as well, you want to make sure that the materials are not really high end, because architects do beautiful designs and gorgeous, how they look on the outside, but sometimes that material can be quite expensive. So,
make sure you understand the whole cost before you start.
Yes.
And that's with all of those materials and all of those finishes.
Yes.
And because some of those can really add up at the end.
Yeah, yes.
And you don't want to be caught with that after you've already committed.
Yes, especially if it's a material on the outside. I mean, can you forego that gorgeous looking cladding for something a little bit cheaper as well?
Yeah. What I keep hearing though is to understand all of this before you start.
Yes.
So all the way through to the end, to the tiny little details that maybe, your first buyer or first builder wouldn't have thought about. Think about every little thing, even every light fitting, every light point, every little thing before you even start the process of signing a contract.
That's right. So you're not caught unawares with extra costs. This is what it's all about. And like I keep on saying, those big discounts that the builders are offering are just not true. It's a big marketing ploy. And when with those things, like I know there's a lot of pressure. So I see people get pressured. So they're running around saying, if I don't sign this contract in 4 days, I'm going to have to pay an extra $60,000, and it puts the pressure to sign. So they're not going and I guess getting more information. What would your advice be to somebody who's feeling pressured? Pressured, yes. I would. At the moment, builders need jobs. So I think it's very much in the consumer, like the client's favour at the moment. So I would make sure that you do your homework before. I don't think you should sign anything until you know exactly what you're signing.
Yeah.
So
I think that's great advice.
Yes. So again, go from room to room. Again, make sure that everything that you want is in that tender. Do not sign until you're happy with everything. And honestly, it's in the client's favour at the moment because builders really want jobs. We've had this slump after COVID, which actually went a bit crazy.
Yes.
It all went a bit crazy and all land was gobbled up, and that sort of slowed down a bit because obviously we had the price rises and then builders, some of them went broke. So now we're at this stage that people are a bit scared of building, to be honest.
You know what? They definitely are a bit scared of building.
So those that want to build, I mean, I love building. I reckon it's the best way to have a new home. But I think that sort of will play into the client's favour to say, okay, well, can you just give me a couple more days? I need to have these questions answered. Otherwise, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So don't sign anything until you're completely comfortable.
That's right.
Until you know exactly what's in there and until you understand how you're going to finance that and anything at the end.
Yes, that's right.
That is great advice.
Yes.
And look, as someone who's I've built a few turnkey properties for investment, and then I guess I've done something a little bit different and just built I went into one of the display villages and got one of those. And as an investor too, I actually didn't understand how much time it was going to take me to do those things at the end.
Right,
So it wasn't really
yes.
about the cost. Like I had the funds to do those things, to put them in, but it was the time
Yes.
that it took me to get that organised. And time is money because you're holding that
That's
property for all
right.
that time.
Not being rented.
I didn't
Yes.
budget for that 4
Yeah.
months of not having a tenant. And I think if people understand the difference between turnkey
Yes.
and not turnkey, at least they can be informed
Yes,
when they
that's
start the
right.
process.
Yes. Yeah.
I think we have covered a lot about building, and I hope that we have covered a lot for our listeners. But before we finish off, I'd love to know if there's anything that we haven't covered or any insights that you'd like to give anybody out there that's considering building a new home or investment property in 25.
Yes. Well, first thing first, build. I love building, and we need more homes in
We
this
do.
in this country. I suppose another tip would to look at the plans that you're given by the builder. Look at the small print. A lot of people get caught out too, especially if they're on a little bit of a slope, that retaining walls need to be done.
Yes.
And a lot of big builders do not do those retaining walls. Most of them want the client to actually go and build those retaining walls before the slab is down.
And they're
So it's-
expensive.
yeah. They are. So it may say on your plans, retaining by owner. So just check the plans, check anything by owner and make sure you're across that. But
Yeah.
especially if it's retaining walls, you need to ask when that needs to be done by because majority of the time they want that done before the slab is down. And that affects the build time frame too.
100%. I think I would want a wing woman if I was going to be building
thank
a
you.
home. Before we do finish off that, I need to know, what is your favourite ABBA song?
Oh, it has to be Dancing Queen because I am the Dancing Queen. No, obviously not 17 anymore, as it says in the song. I love my ABBA.
Oh, Kerri-Ann, you have been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Now tell me, if people want to reach out or find out more about you, how do they do that?
You can jump on my website, carnelianprojects.com.au, and I'm across all the socials as
Amazing.
well.
I'm going to put the link to Kerri-Ann in our show notes. You have been listening to This is Property. My name's Rachelle Kroon, and we will see you next week.
Any information given in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and you should seek your own property advice before acting on anything you may hear in this podcast. If you want to start or advance your property education journey, John Pidgeon's book, Sort Your Property Out and Build Your Future, is available where all good books are sold, or via the link in the podcast show notes. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the hosts, the publisher, or their respective license holders.